Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Crowd Chatter podcast. And today, we got week seven review. I had to think about that for a second. Week seven review for college football. It was a really good week of football. A lot of really good games. If you haven't seen our picks for the games, go ahead and watch that video because there was a lot of great ones. So there was a lot of great games to pick. A lot of good games to even see. And so, as usual, today it's just me. So, I'll try and go through these as quickly as possible. I'm not nearly as fast as Stravinsky. I like to talk too much. So, we're just going to start with the first one here, which is Clemson beating Florida State on the road 34-28. Florida State tried to make a late comeback in this one. Fell a little short at Doak Campbell, but really, really good game. From both teams, really. Florida State had an early start. Clemson immediately took off and started blowing his team out of the water. Um, it was a great game from Florida State, from both teams. So honestly, it was a very good job by the Seminoles winning this one. Or I'm sorry, by Clemson winning this one. By Clemson. Clemson won the game, as you can see. But good job by both teams. It was a big test for the Florida State and for Clemson. But it was the Tigers who came up with the win in the end. Good job there. Syracuse staying undefeated, knocking off 15th ranked NC State, now without Devin Leary. And so Syracuse gained the win 24-9. Big game though for the Orange. At home at the Carrier Dome, or they call it the GMA Wireless Dome. Dome. um, so big game for Syracuse. Of course, their next game is at Clemson. So it's gonna be a big game for both teams. And so Syracuse staying undefeated. Miami taking down Virginia Tech 20-14. North Carolina gained a big win in a rivalry game over the Duke Blue Devils 38-35. Now this is going to start a trend. If you love offensive games, if you love offense, that's all you're going to get this week. Because there was a lot of games with a lot of offense. This had a crazy ending to it. North Carolina did pull out, though, the 38-35 win, and a big win at that for the Tar Heels. But, yeah, if you love offense, you're going to get a lot of offense this week in all the games. So now, next we head to the Big 12, which, as I said earlier, there's a lot of games that had a lot of scoring in it, and so and this conference is one of them, as it's the Big 12. So anything is going to be high scoring. So we start with the first game, which is a Thursday night game. Baylor falling just short to West Virginia, 43-40. I thought this would be a good game, and it very much was. It was high scoring. West Virginia, though, would knock off the defending Big 12 champions. This was a big chance for Baylor to get back on track and stay within the Big 12 race. They end up fumbling it in Morgantown. Big loss for Baylor. Big win for West Virginia. And then we start the Saturday games, which starts with a crazy one, with a great one. TCU and Oklahoma State, battle of the undefeateds, one of three undefeated matchups this past weekend. And it went to double overtime. Outstanding game, but TCU would end up topping Oklahoma State, getting the win at home 43-40. This TCU team has a very good offense. Their defense, honestly, has not been good this year, but they stepped up as they held Oklahoma State to 0 in the fourth quarter, down 14, came back and tied it. TCU showed some defense, And that's huge because they had been awful defensively all year long. And they'd given up 30 points in the first three quarters, but then in the fourth, they held Oklahoma State to nothing, and they came back, they tied the game, got to double overtime, and they ended up winning it in double overtime. It was a huge game for TCU and a very big win for the Horned Frogs, getting the win at home and staying unbeaten in the Big 12. Enormous game for TCU and new head coach Sonny Dykes. What a way to start this season. Kansas and Oklahoma. Oklahoma trying to get back on track, and they did in what was another shootout of a game. Oklahoma State gained the win 52-42 over the Kansas Jayhawks. And Kansas doesn't even have their starting quarterback. Jalen Daniels was out for this game, bringing in Jason Bean as a reserve. Kansas, of course, was still ranked 19th, believe it or not. But Oklahoma able to put up enough points, bringing in Dylan Gabriel as he finally came back for them. And yeah, they look like a completely different team with Dylan Gabriel heading the offense. And Kansas probably looks like a completely different team with Jalen Daniels running the offense. So, like I said, when I was picking this game, it's a matter of which quarterback is actually playing and who has their starting quarterback. If Oklahoma had Gabriel, I probably would have picked Oklahoma. I went with Kansas because Jason Bean is at least a serviceable backup. In Oklahoma, we saw them against Texas. They don't have backups. They have no backups. So Oklahoma, very messy when it comes to backups, but they win 52-42. And then Texas gained a close win at home against Iowa State, who's now 0-4 in the Big 12. Texas escaping 24-21. Iowa State, not a good look there. Very obviously, Iowa State fans not happy right now with that performance. And now we have one of the biggest games of the week as we head to the Big Ten, another one of the bigger games. Penn State heading to the Big House. I was nervous about this game. I didn't know the Wolverines would come out with the win, and holy stinking cow. We didn't just win. We dominated Penn State. The Nittany Lions come into the Big House and we blew them off the field. It wasn't even a contest. I mean, we had one bad minute and a half in the second quarter, of which gave Penn State a very brief lead, or one of two very brief leads. We gave up one long run to Sean Clifford, and then we got a pick six that got tipped in the air, and then got caught by a Penn State guy and returned for a touchdown. But really, other than that, Penn State did absolutely nothing all game long. I mean, it was a domination. It was not a contest. But Michigan dominated the entire game. And that's not even the only thing. Michigan's run game in this game was absolutely unbelievable. It was insane how many yards of offense the Michigan rushing game was able to put on Penn State as Michigan ran for 418 yards. It was unbelievable. I really still am speechless because I was nervous we'd end up losing the game, and instead we blew them off the field. So I was stunned. But unbelievable job by Michigan. I can't say enough about that performance. Outstanding what a statement from Michigan. And so now we go to another big game in the Big Ten, which was to hold a lead in the Big Ten West between Minnesota and 24th ranked Illinois. And Tommy DeVito played this game, and Illinois came out with the win. They beat Minnesota 26-14 at home, and cementing themselves in the lead in the Big Ten West, which is huge for Illinois. This team honestly looks pretty darn good. To me, they look like Iowa from last season with better offense because they have a good running game with Chase Brown and at running back. They have a good running game, And their quarterback is a decent runner. Tommy DeVito can run. And Illinois, I mean, they're not really a great passing team, but Tommy DeVito's not terrible throwing. I mean, he's not good, but I mean, they could throw if they had to. This Illinois team, to me, looks like Iowa from last season, but just better. So I'm very curious to see how Illinois plays the rest of this year. Michigan will have to play them the week before Ohio State, which is not comforting. But this is a very good Illinois team. Very impressed with them so far. Then we had Maryland knocking off Indiana on the road, 38-33, going to 5-2. Then we had a crazy one in East Lansing with Michigan State making a late comeback to knock off the Wisconsin Badgers, 34-28. Wisconsin drops to 1-3 in the Big Ten. Michigan State getting their first win in the Big Ten. Just crazy to even think about that. And then Purdue would escape against at home against Nebraska, barely beating them 43-37. Not a pretty game there. But really big wins, I would say, for Michigan State too. I mean, they have been losing. They obviously had not played well so far. Coming into that game, 2-4. Looked like they'd be 2-5. Even throughout the game, they weren't playing well. They were down in this game, but they fought in overtime and they got the win. And they now put themselves at 3-4. Get their first win in the Big Ten, going into the bye. Feel good about yourselves. I think that's a huge win for Michigan State, and it comes just the right time with, of course, coming out of the bye and coming out of Michigan's bye will be the Wolverines. And Michigan will get to play Michigan State coming out of their bye as well. So I think, and it's supposed to be on 7:30 ABC, so that's even nicer yet, right? Because Michigan State needs all the more motivation to beat the Wolverines, right? I mean, it's nice to have it on prime time, but it's also just like, come on, really. So now we go to the Pac-12, which had a huge upset with Utah outscoring, believe it or not, USC. Utah putting up 43, getting a late 2-point conversion because Utah, of course, could not stop USC. But USC couldn't stop Utah either. I had a feeling this would be a sneaky game. I didn't know if USC would come out to win. I still picked them. But Utah was able to keep up with the USC offense. They continued to score, and Cam Rising would get a 2-point conversion late in the game, which would put Utah on top by 143-42. Now, there was a lot of concerns with the refereeing in this game. These guys were absolutely clueless. They added 5 seconds at the end of the game because of, I guess, a penalty. They said someone took a timeout, and then they didn't take a timeout. Then they had 2 bogus roughing the passer calls. I mean, it was very confusing. Also, those both ends, so I can't say they went one way or the other. It was just bad. So I don't know who did that game, but that needs some improvement. But really good game from Utah. Keeps them within the Pac-12 race. For USC, heartbreaking loss. You lose by 1. You had to lead multiple times. You just never could put away the Utes, and they end up coming back late to win this one. But huge win for Utah. Like I said, heartbreaking for USC. We'll see if they can recover. Of course, they only have really 2 other good games this year because they have UCLA later this season, of course, and along with Notre Dame, which are the only 2 good teams left on their schedule. So we'll see how those 2 go. But this was another challenging one, and they end up just falling short. Then you had Colorado getting their first win of the year. Yeah, I don't know how, but the Cal Golden Bears heading to Boulder, Colorado, and Colorado, an 0-5 team coming into this game, gets the win in overtime, knocks off Cal, getting a 20-13 win. Cal came into this game 3-2. We knew they were not a good team, but they end up knocking off Colorado. The Bears fall short in this one. I mean, Colorado's bad, but Cal, you can't be losing to an 0-5 team. Come on now. And so then we had Washington gain the 10-point win against Arizona, 49-35. I told you there'd be a lot of offense. this week. And then Stanford would get a 16-14 win in South Bend, their first FBS win of the year, as they're 1-4 coming into this game. Stanford wins it by 2 in South Bend. Another not good game for new head coach Marcus Freeman over at Notre Dame. Not good luck for him. Not good luck for Notre Dame. So things obviously not going well in South Bend. Then we had Oregon State knocking off Washington State. What was actually a really good Pac-12 matchup. Oregon State getting the win 24-10 in this one in Corvallis. Big win for Ducks as they remain in the Pac-12 race. Washington State falls to 1-3 in the Pac-12. So now let's move on to what is probably the biggest, where the biggest games were this week for college football. And that was the SEC. There were no bigger games than in the SEC. Of course, we'll get to the big game in a moment here. Georgia, of course, does what they should. They bomb Vanderbilt 55-0, and here it is. The Tennessee Volunteers winning at home in Knoxville, taking down Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide 52-49. I have never seen a Nick Saban team look this bad before in my life. Alabama committed 17 penalties in this game. 17! And somehow still put up 49 on the Tennessee defense. Now, all year, I have really hated Tennessee. I don't like this Tennessee team. I don't like the Volunteers. I never have. But this Tennessee team, they keep proving me wrong. They keep winning games. They gave up 49 to Bama, which is not good, especially with committing 17 penalties. That really is not a good look. But they still put up 52. And I don't care how bad you played. 52 points is 52 points. Even if you're a bad team, that's still hard to do. And especially with it being a Nick Saban coach team. That is really impressive. Of course, Tennessee stormed the field and ended up taking down the goalpost and throwing them in the Tennessee River. Why? I don't know. But when you finally beat your rival for the first time in like a decade and a half, I don't blame you. So Tennessee remaining undefeated, though. Big win for Tennessee. Obviously, absolutely enormous. Not a good look for Alabama coming into this game. Bryce Young was back, so everybody thought, Alabama's probably going to win this one. But instead, defense, offense, everything was sloppy. Ugly play. And, of course, when you don't play your best against what has been so far a really good team, while I don't necessarily think that Hendon Hooker is, some superstar, he continues to play well. He has the numbers. He's been very good. And as much as I want to say, he's overrated and whatever, he continues to play well. And so at some point you got to admit that, the guy's playing really, really well. Whether he's done it before or not, he's having an outstanding season. And even as much as I hate Tennessee, this team has a legitimate chance at the CFP. Of course, they first got to beat Georgia, which, being in Athens, I'm not really sure if they can do that. But what an impressive win for Tennessee. Very impressive, very good as well for the Volunteers. Then you had Ole Miss at home against the Auburn Tigers. Auburn, obviously not a good team. Ole Miss is undefeated, and they're still undefeated. But Auburn made it interesting. Ole Miss ended up with the win 48-34 over Auburn in this game. Good win for Ole Miss. I mean, I think they would have liked it to be a bit more, to be not as close as it was. I think they would have liked to have a little bit more of a gap here. But a win's a win. They don't really care how they get it, as long as they do get it. And Ole Miss, undefeated, very much within the SEC West race. And they got Alabama coming to town very soon, but this is a tough stretch of games for Ole Miss. They got, I think, they got LSU on the road coming this weekend, which could very easily become a loss considering how LSU plays. Because LSU, we'll get to, actually, that's a game we'll get to in a moment here. I won't talk about that just yet. Then we got another top 25 matchup here. Kentucky at home against Mississippi State. Will Levis did play in this game, and well, when Kentucky has Will Levis, it shows because they played Mississippi State. They played a good game. They win this one 27-17 at home against the Bulldogs. Big win for the Wildcats, getting back on track. This Kentucky team is a completely different team with Will Levis as the Will Levis at the helm as the QB. So big win for Kentucky. Could not be bigger for them. And then next we have Arkansas going on the road to BYU for a random non-conference game in the middle of the season. And Arkansas would put up 52 and win 52-35. Like I said, there's a lot of offense this week, so get used to it. But another big win for Arkansas. A lot of struggle, some weeks missing KJ Jefferson on a 3-game losing streak. They needed a big win, and they got it. So big win for Arkansas, gets them back on track as they move back into SEC play, and then another big game. We had LSU and Florida. I thought this would be an outstanding matchup. I picked the Gators, and the top 25 LSU team again showed up, and the good Florida team showed up too. So I really don't know what to think about this LSU team because I have seen so many different versions of them. It's like where's your consistency? Please give me a consistency so I know what to expect from you. Because if you played the way that you've want to play, the way that you have played in your 5 wins, you would be 7-0 probably. I mean, you look at that; their 2 losses are a blowout loss against Tennessee, which probably wouldn't have been as bad if they actually had played like they did against Florida in that game, and against Florida State on a blocked PAT. If they had played a full game against Florida State, they probably win. If they play a full game against Tennessee, they maybe even win that game. Maybe Tennessee still wins, but hey, they won't get blown out 40-13. So I don't know what on earth to say about LSU. But they're all over the place. Some weeks they look really darn good, like this one, putting up 45 in the swamp against Florida. And other weeks, they put up 13 at home against Tennessee's defense. I mean, I don't get it. So this LSU team is wildly inconsistent, but this week they had their good week, and they win this one 45-35 in the swamp against Florida. Once again, Anthony Richardson having a decent game, honestly. Florida played pretty well in this one. But really a big game for LSU, getting another nice win. Only one loss still in the SEC. So as much as this team is 5-2 and unranked, holy crap! Look, they still got a chance at winning the SEC. Of course, their loss was to Tennessee, but that's on the other side of the conference. LSU is not out of it yet. This team is very much in the mix for the SEC. But really great week of football. And that led to a lot of changings in the rankings. So let's get to that next. Of course, that's how we always do this. We do the reviews first, and then we get to the newest top 25 poll. So starting with the new rankings here, number 1 is Georgia. What a surprise. The Bulldogs are ranked number 1, like they should be. Number 2 is Ohio State with 17 votes to be number 1. And number 3, Tennessee is number 3 with 15 votes to be number 1. Look, Tennessee looked really good offensively. They don't have a defense. They can't play defense. I'm sorry, until they show. I mean, yeah, LSU scored 13, but you just heard what I was saying about LSU. They're not consistent. So until you can show me that you can actually, stop an offense that's actually legitimate, don't talk to me about Tennessee ahead of Michigan, who just kicked the crap out of Penn State. Of course, Wolverines number 4, swapping with Clemson, who would drop to number 5. Alabama would drop 3 spots to number 6. I would have dropped them farther than that with how pathetically they played. Ole Miss going to number 7 after the win over Auburn. TCU with their big win swaps with Oklahoma State, taking their spot at number 8. UCLA and Oregon both jumping up to gain into the top 10. UCLA 9, Oregon 10. Oklahoma State would drop to number 11, dropping 3. USC would drop 5 spots to number 12. Wake Forest going to 13, going up 1. Syracuse would go to 14 after their big win over NC State. Utah would go up another 5 after beating USC. Big win for them. Penn State, after their first loss of the year, would drop to 16th, back 6 spots after getting pummeled by the Wolverines. Kansas State would remain at 17 after a bye. Illinois would go up 6 spots after their huge win over Minnesota. They jumped to 18th. Kentucky, with their big win over Mississippi State, would go up to 19. Texas up to 20. Cincinnati sitting at number 21 after, I believe, they also had a bye. And then we had 2 new teams in the rankings this week, with North Carolina, one of the new teams this week, at number 22. NC State, their big rival, just behind them at number 23, dropping 8 spots. Also dropping 8 spots was Mississippi State, number 24. And then a really interesting ranking, Tulane, ranked number 25 at ranked 25th at 6-1, with Purdue, LSU, South Carolina, UCF, and Kansas as the next teams to get in. I would put probably Purdue in ahead of Tulane. The only reason Tulane is ranked is because they beat Kansas State. So yeah. But nice rankings. I would put Michigan over Tennessee, but that's bias. Because I'm a Wolverines fan. So take that as you may. But that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We should have another great week of college football. Not as good as this week. There's not as many good games, but there's still going to be some good ones, headlined by, of course, UCLA, Oregon. So that's it for this one. Go ahead and watch our video that will probably come out soon, or will be out when this one is too, likely, because I probably will do them all at the same time. So enjoy this week of football, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And that's all for me. Until next time, adios, everybody.